will bang the gavel. Okay, thank you, sir. Let's call the Santee City Council meeting to order for, holy mackerel, I can't remember the day. March 8th, 2023. It's been one of those days, okay? And let the record show that the entire City Council is here. Tonight, the invocation will be given by Marshall Masser. And let me tell you just a little bit about him. Marshall Masser is the lead minister at Lakeside Christian Church. And he's been there for 16 years. And he's the preaching pastor, the vision caster, staff leader, and small group teacher. Marshall completed his graduate work at Ozark Christian College. Ozark Christian College is in the city of Joplin, Missouri, on a 60-acre campus. The college is near Kansas City, Fayetteville, Branson, and Tulsa. And the college began as a Bible college in 1942 with only 16 students. Today, with over 15,000 students and over 75 years later, OCC continues to train men and women for Christian service. Over 90% of the graduates enter vocational or voluntary ministry. Marshall obtained his master's degree from Lincoln Christian University in Lincoln, Illinois. Lincoln Christian University is a Christian higher education community whose mission is to nurture and equip Christians with a biblical worldview to serve and lead in the church and the world. Marshall and his wife Claudia have been involved in leadership ministry for over 25 years, and they have two daughters, Sydney and London. Getting older now, aren't they? Funny how that happens. So Marshall, he's a member of the San Diego Mountain Rescue Team. He loves to bike, and I do know that. And one thing that he and I share is we have both crashed on our bikes. And he loves to swim, run, hike, and mountain climb. So once again, Marshall, I appreciate you being here. We're going to ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. So the way that works is God before country. So we'll do it here, the invocation first. And by the way, you've been here before, you know, so I always surprise people on who's doing that, right? And so tonight's your turn. So please pray for our country and our council. Please rise for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance. Invocation first. I misunderstood you.
God before country.
Perfect. That's what I want. Let's pray. Father in heaven, I thank you because the scriptures promise us that you're with us. And I thank you for this city council that desires to start with putting you first. And I ask that you would honor the mayor and these council members and our community leaders as they bow before you, that you would honor them with wisdom, that you would honor them with unity, and that you would bless our community with resources, that you would protect us from evil, and that you would use this community to bless the weak and protect them. We ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Now, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. You can blame it on me because I messed up when I first started tonight, too. How's that sound? No blame. Great. Thank you very much. So that takes us to the consent calendar. Are there any items to be added, deleted, or reordered? Ron?
No.
Laura?
No.
Justin?
No, sir.
Councilmember McMillan?
No, Mr. Mayor.
And I do not have any. City manager?
Nothing, sir.
City Attorney?
No, sir.
City Clerk?
No, sir.
Are there any speaker slips?
No, sir.
In that case, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Is there? Okay. Who? Okay.
First or second?
Okay. Councilmember McNellis and Vice Mayor, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. That takes us to non-agenda public comment.
I have 4 speakers. The first speaker I have is Zandra Talbot. Zandra Talbot.
Welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second time that I've been at the city council. I do have a serious problem with a man across the street. He has done something to his muffler, and all the fumes, the wind would blow it over. I live in a wine village. It's a mobile home park, and all the exhaust will come in my trailer. I have gone to the emergency room twice. I have asthma really bad, and I need some help. I have been calling people to help seniors, and they say, no, we can't help you. And I just need some help to stop this guy because he is killing me. I wake up, he wakes me up about 1:30 in the morning. My room is filled with his car exhaust. I need to get up and go in the living room and sleep in my lounge chair. That's what I have to do. And I'm at my wit's ends with this guy. And I just don't know what to do. I need help.
Mike, did we look into that?
Yes, we're working with the management there in the mobile home park on this problem. We're aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any timeline on maybe when we can resolve it, or?
Well, we're aware of the problem, and we've been working with the management. The sheriff's department is somewhat limited on what we can do because it is in the park. But
Oh, okay.
we've been aware of the issue, and we're working with management on it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. The sheriff is working on this. They're working with the management there to do what they can.
Okay. Thank you.
Jean Emmons. Jean.
Hi, Gene. It's been a while.
Good evening. I'm at my wit's end with the homeless in Santee. I have spent the entire morning over by Town Center Park cleaning up the debris left by the homeless. I hauled out at least 6 large bags over to the recycling or the dumpster there in the park. And I don't understand why there's not something that can be done with the city that checks on these homeless encampments when they set up. And then years ago, the 2 homeless guys that have been out there for at least 12 or 13 years told me that the sheriff's department told them that they know they're not supposed to be camped there, but as long as they keep everything buttoned up in their tent, they're not going to say anything because they have to be somewhere. This is not the thing. Apparently, a few weeks ago, there was a bunch that set up. This is in the south side of Town Center Park, where we're having a big event on Saturday. And they did call the city about that bunch and their mess, and apparently the city sent over a truck and a backhoe and whatever and got all that mess supposedly cleaned up, that was at least 2 of the bags of crap that I picked up today and hauled to the dumpster that were still there. There is another bunch of homeless that have moved in over in the same area behind the weeds. It's just, it looks like the city dump. This is not the Santee that I live in. If you don't get on the top of these messes, they're going to take over the city. I am going to be over there picking up stuff, and I yoo-hooed in the camp, are you there? That's all the warning I'm going to give them. If I get shot, if I get knocked in the head, so be it. But the city of Santee should have done something about the encroachment on your property. I'm assuming the city of Santee owns the area right outside of Santee, the town center park, where the bushes are. If it's not the city of Santee, then direct me. I'll go to the county. If it's private property, I'll go to the owner there. But this is unacceptable. You don't have to model the city of San Diego, who until everything is a crisis before they do anything.
Next speaker I have,
The city of Santee to do something now.
next speaker I have is a person with no name.
Jane, I'm sorry, your time's up. But we'll talk about this.
I will be over there again tomorrow. If any of you that are here, sitting up there or sitting out here, want to join me, I will be over there tomorrow with trash bags again. And if the people are there, then they can take care of their own business. If they're not there, I'm going to bag up their shit, and it's going to be in the dumpster in the
Jane,
parking lot.
your time is up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, staff. My name is No Name, but I live in Santee. And I was a little appalled that people can come up here with no name, don't live in the city of Santee, and tell us what we need to do as a community. It is insulting that our people that we elected have to endure insults. And it was very alarming that people don't have to live here. They can come up here, spend 3 minutes, and do actually nothing but insults. And that's a form of bullying. My concerns here in Santee is we're going into a big recession. If you don't notice, we're going to have a lot more than homeless. We're going to have middle class out there on those streets. We need to beef up our park systems. We need to put in that library. We need resources for these families raising children in this city to be able to go and utilize. In the old days, growing up in Santee, the parks were a big thing because we didn't have money to go on vacations and do all the things that we take for granted nowadays. It was tough living here in Santee. My parents came in 1946. It wasn't no run in the park here. We were made fun of. We lived in the sticks. Nobody ever heard of us. And so we had our trial and errors, and the library was a big thing because that was a resource. And I think those resources are going to come around 180 on us, and we need to implement and have as much as we can in our area to accommodate these needs of these families. These people are going to be struggling. This homeless situation is only going to get worse. And it's not going to just be homeless drug addicts. It's going to be homeless families. We need to beef up our home buyers program, take it back into the city hands, and help these families out that are paying rent that is more than mortgages on some cases. And if we don't do something as a community, we're going to just sit back and watch it unfold. And I'd hate to see that happen. This is the strongest city council that I've ever been in front of, and I've been to the first city council meeting over 41 years ago here in Santee at the Santana High School in a classroom. So there's nobody here that could say they have seen council like I have. We are grateful for our city council and the expertise that each one of you bring to the table to help us in this dilemma. Thank you.
Next speaker I have is Michael Pittman.
Hello. I came to talk about Little League again. We are Santee National Little League. We have some fields by Rio Seco. There are two really large trees that are, one of them is leaning sideways. It's pushing in on our fence, and it's starting to obstruct one of the three structures that we actually have on site. So I would be afraid that that tree is going to impact that structure in a way that's going to limit our resources that we already have going on at that field. So I did call the city. Someone told me that they're aware, but I'm better off probably pursuing this on my own, directly with the school district versus with the city. That they've marked them, they're aware, but they can't make the school district do anything. So good luck. That's kind of the message that I felt like I received when I called today. So just wanted to stand up here and at least let you guys know what's going on. I can send some pictures. Maybe that, they said they put in a complaint sometime in 2022 for that tree to the school district. We've had a lot of wind and stuff since then. So I don't know how updated that the pictures that they have of how impactful that tree is, at least on our field, and the families that we serve. Again, we increased 35% in the amount of families that we serve down at that baseball facility. That's more than 100 parents and families and kids that are coming through that baseball field, and it's already kind of rickety. So if we can get that tree looked at, that would be amazing. And I did talk to Ann, I think last week, the last time I spoke. So she said she's taking back some of the information that I talked to her about with her director, and will give me an update on stuff. So if we can add that maybe to the list of things that we talked about, because when I originally talked to Ann, that was not, I wasn't as aware of how impactful that tree is actually looking on our fields, because I mainly coach on a different field. So thanks for your time.
Final speaker I have is Truth.
This is non-agenda, correct? Okay, since I missed my chance to speak on them, item 1 was completely unethical to approve ordinances and resolutions by only reading the title. And about item 2, last meeting on February 22nd, I explained how none of these council members should be involved with the League of California Cities. To recap, the League is an unelected regional governance group that pushes what is called active transportation. That's walking and biking to de-incentivize driving and prioritize no car ownership. And that tends to involve reducing and narrowing car lanes, cramming in sustainable slime green bike lanes, getting rid of parking, and more. The League also trains mayors, council members, city attorneys, and city clerks who end up getting bribed with fancy dinners and trips to transform our country one local government usurpational step at a time. The League of California Cities sponsors include Amazon, AT&T, Cox, Kaiser, Sempra's SoCal Gas, State Farm, and Verizon. All of those sponsors being World Economic Forum partners whose very overt and literal agenda is for all of us to own nothing and have no privacy by 2030. But here's these council members' frivolous spending on the League of California Cities as detailed in that item. $30,258 was spent on League of CA Cities, $47 on transportation, $428 on airfare, $625 on League of CA Cities NorCal, $625 on League of CA Cities SoCal, $750 on League of CA Cities, and $19,550 on League of California Cities annual membership dues. That's a total of over $52,000 wasted. That money could have gone to fixing the roads, right, Dustin? Or the library, or a nice $1,000 refund to all the taxpayers. There was more spending, though, that was indeterminable as to whether or not it was related to the League of California Cities, and that is $110 on annual membership dues, $70 on meeting dues, $2,175 on 2 conference registrations, and $1,715 on conference membership dues. Also, I saw $200 went to the City Clerk Association of California. That's another unelected regional governance group usurping our local government, just like the League of California Cities. And just for fun mention, $422 was spent on travel reimbursement for John. I guess that $35,000 plus mayor check doesn't cover enough travel. So that's where some of that inflated $53.6 million budget from the taxpayers was wasted. Unfortunately, on forms of usurpation of our local control that we should be keeping. Thank you.
That takes us to item number 7, new business. Report of Community-Oriented Policing Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program. Who's going first? Welcome, Linda.
I am Ms. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, council members, members here in the audience in the room, and those who may be tuning in virtually. I am very pleased to be here with my fellow members of the DEI Ad Hoc Committee, Dr. Mark Foreman, David Shorey, and Steve Stellman, to share with you the culmination of the ad hoc work that we have done around phase 1 of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion framework. We're here to provide you with a status update as well as to put forth some recommendations for moving the city forward in its DEI and inclusion work. By way of providing you with a little bit of context, and for those who may not be as familiar with the history that gave birth to the DEI Ad Hoc Committee, in June of 2020, the city of Santee, here in Santee, mirrored the unrest that was seen throughout the country. To address those events here in Santee, the City Council developed and adopted Resolution 066-2020. That resolution affirmed the city's commitment to equity, to promoting tolerance, and to denouncing hate speech and racism. So to ensure that those resolutions and commitments that were put forth in that resolution were put into practice in October 2020 in Compoc, or through Compoc, the mayor created an ad hoc DEI subcommittee. And in January of 2021, that ad hoc committee presented here to the City Council a roadmap to define and organize the city's DEI work and to make recommendations for action and resources to support those efforts. That roadmap was approved and adopted by this City Council. This is a graphic representing that roadmap as it was presented to this council in January 2021. I'll call your attention to the lower left-hand corner where it refers to phase 1. This approved roadmap indicates the sequence of activities that actually provided a foundation for moving us forward in our diversity, equity, and inclusion effort. There were 4 basic steps to this phase 1. To explain further those steps, I would like to turn the mic over now to Steve Stellman, who will give you a quick overview and a summary of the first 3 steps.
Thank you, Linda. So what you see on this slide is the activity that followed the adoption of the roadmap. The intent here was to begin with collecting and reporting what the city and the sheriff's department had currently been doing to that, around that time in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The second step was the needs assessment survey, which had 4 focus areas. We sought input from residents regarding their perspectives on quality of life, community values and diversity, resident experiences with discrimination, and city programs and services. The results of that survey had a 95% confidence level with 556 respondents out of approximately 45,000 residents 18 years and older, which is thought by our statistical consultant to be meaningful and therefore representative of the community. And as you can see, one of the primary conclusions reached by the analysts was that racism and discrimination were of concern to the residents of Santee. The objective of the third step was to reach out to the community and gauge public perspective and understanding of DEI, and to begin collecting public input regarding community values through 2 town hall meetings. Further, in-person and online surveys were conducted over a 3-month period to gather public input on community values felt to be essential to a thriving, safe, and healthy Santee. I'll now turn the microphone over to David Shorey to share the outcome of those surveys.
Thank you, Steve. So here we are. These are the 3 community values that ranked at the top of the surveys that were done to the community, both in person and online. And we felt that it was important for these community values to be presented in context through the DEI filter with definitions relative to DEI. But before I go into that, I just want to, again, the input here is from the residents of Santee, and we spent an extensive amount of time attending community events, talking with residents, soliciting their input. So we're very confident that these values represent Santee and are ones that we are very happy to present to council. So the community value statement that accompanies this has a couple of points that we want to make. One is that sharing the mutual belief that valuing every individual makes our community healthy, stronger, and thriving. We reference the resolution that the council adopted, and that the values that we put forward are foundational to the practice of valuing every individual. We also acknowledge that in this work, inherent in this work, is the aspect of diversity, equity, inclusion, and authenticity. And we really wanted to include authenticity because we want this to be inherent in all Santee residents, visitors, people who work here, people who play here, that they are authentic in their actions and their words, how they relate to the community values that we put forth. And realizing that these values represent Santee's emerging journey of identity, and as such are aspirational and ongoing. That meaning that this is a work in progress. We're all works in progress. And this is a continued effort. If if the mayor would allow, I would like to actually read the statement in its entirety. We community members who visit, live, work, and play in Santee share the mutual belief that valuing every individual makes our community healthier, stronger, safer, and thriving. The core values identified here are grounded in Santee's Resolution 066-2020, which underscores why they are important. And Section 3 of that says, the city joins cities, counties, and states across the country in affirming its commitment to the safety and well-being of all community members, including the Black community and all peoples of color, faiths, or other groups, and in combating hate crimes, targeting Black individuals, and other protected classes. As community members, we have identified the following values as fundamental to the practice of valuing every individual: accountability, being responsible for one's own actions and outcomes to safeguard equity, inclusion, dignity, and a positive, thriving environment for all. Community-minded, taking appropriate action to advance the health, safety, and quality of life for all members of our community. And respect, honoring the rights, differences, and dignity of others through our words and actions. Lying at the heart of these values is the authentic practice of the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. For the purpose of developing this core value statement, we embrace the following definitions of DEI and authenticity. Diversity is acknowledging that individuals have different and varied identities, including national origin, skin color, gender, religion, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, individuals with disabilities, etc. Equity, providing fair and just treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some community members. Inclusion, the practice of welcoming and integrating diverse peoples and groups, especially those who have been historically or traditionally excluded or marginalized. And authenticity, honestly representing one's true nature or beliefs, acknowledging the uncomfortable, and taking responsibility for one's mistakes. In order to embody these values in the fabric of our community, we affirm that we each bear the responsibility for their authentic practice in our words and actions. We also recognize that these values represent Santee's emerging journey of identity, and as such, are aspirational and ongoing. We believe that advancing them creates a healthier community and benefits all who visit, live, work, and play in Santee. So that is the statement, and I will tell you every single word of that statement was scrutinized. This was not done under, let's throw some words together and make it sound good. Literally every single word was scrutinized. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Foreman. Am I going backwards? Oh, fine. Okay, you find it.
Good evening. There, I found it. So, you've heard a lot so far. What is a value other than if it's not simply a belief? And we're talking about community values, but to have community values show up, they got to come out of a bunch of individuals that make up the community. I'm going to surmise that everybody in this room has your own personal core values that drives everything that you do, whether it's in politics or work or family or play. It really doesn't matter. It's what drives us. We just heard other members of the community start talking about the word embodiment. How does a community embody their values? Well, one is they have to name them, and that's what they've done. This process, this map that's up here, was a guideline to allow the community to interact with the committee to say, okay, what's important for us? And they've identified it, they've named them. Accountability, community-minded, respect. Probably something that's pretty important to most of us. We know when we feel disrespected, and we maybe even know when we feel like we're offering respect to somebody else or when we're respecting ourselves. And that's the power of some of this, is the embodiment it's multi-directional. It's inward to the individual, but then it's back outward to the people that matter, whether it's their neighbors, their business owners, their customers, or whether it's just somebody passing through town. So the embodiment is a kind of thing that we don't just do it. It doesn't just happen. It's like doing bicep curls or doing some other regimen, changing a lifestyle. It almost becomes a lifestyle change, and it requires time. These types of changes might require a long time. It won't be snapping a finger and all of a sudden instantly everybody's being nice with each other. Most of the people in this community are nice and kind with each other. So then it's like, well, what happens when that doesn't happen? So it's the embodiment of it will require time, repetition. You do one bicep curl or you don't eat one donut. I'm thinking about myself not eating one donut. That's fine, but I got to not eat a lot of donuts to maybe make that lifestyle change. Got to do a lot of bicep. Got to exercise both biceps. Otherwise, So all this is really what this is about, is the reminders throughout the community that y'all told us this was important, and what do we do with it? And that's what we're, in this chart, there's a hand with a heart on it. It's like values tend to reside within our heart. Somehow we know it deep within our heart that something's amiss, and it can start to inform the council, the city, as the city operates, everybody else throughout the city, as to how are decisions made. Oh, well, how's my sense of respect and accountability and community-mindedness going? Just check in with it over and over and over. And pretty soon it just shows up. And you'll know it when it's being pushed on and assaulted, either internally or from the outside. So in essence, we're handing it to you now. That's what phase 2 is going to be, is we're handing it off, a little heart wrapped around it, to then say, okay, well, what next? How do you sustain it? How do you sustain a lifestyle change? And if we're asking the community to work with us, the collective in here, to say, okay, yeah, let's go forward with this. These are important. And how do we live by these every day? There will be conflicts. There will be stresses. We've already heard some tonight where things are a little, what do we do with all that? So the sustainability and the embodiment of it all is what Linda's now going to kind of do some big asks of what that's going to look like. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've come full circle. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this roadmap that you see before you outlined the steps for phase 1 of the city's efforts and DEI work. Phase 2, as Mark has referenced, is where the rubber meets the road. How does the city actually make these core values and its accompanying statement a reality for every resident, for every individual that visits the city of Santee? So how do you actually do that? With that, we come to phase 2, implementation and sustainability. As we shared during our initial presentation of the roadmap back in 2021, diversity, equity, and inclusion are not words, just words. They're not trophies to be placed on a shelf somewhere and admired. They represent an ongoing set of actions that require constant support, effort, and resources to have a meaningful impact. That includes identifying who is going to carry this DEI cause forward for the city, so that DEI truly becomes deeply rooted into all city activities and becomes an integral part of how people describe Santee and live into our city values. So, with that objective in mind, we ask the City Council to take the following actions. Incorporate this DEI framework of core community values into your policies, our procedures, our protocols, and our decision-making processes. Promote the statement in which these values are defined and embedded, and identify and fund an entity who is to carry this DEI cause forward for the city. So with that, we come to you with these formal recommendations that we ask you to consider and adopt so that DEI truly becomes part of the profile of Santee, not just today's Santee, but becomes something that future residents can actually claim as well. When they go to describe the city they live in, they play in, they work in, they can say, this is what Santee represents. We ask that you approve and adopt this statement, and we ask that you direct the city manager to address and implement the next steps for continuing these efforts and for authentically promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city of Santee. With that, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for the current as well as previous members of this ad hoc committee, for the members of COMPOC, and we would like to extend particularly our gratitude, a heartfelt thank you, to those city staff employees who have provided us with unwavering and indispensable support over the work that we have done over these last 2 years. I will ask my fellow committee members to come forward, and we'll be happy to field any questions that you may have.
Linda, we're going to go to public comment before we take questions.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That way we can cover them all at once.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have 2 speakers. Truth?
Okay, staff, did you know that the assessment of 563 people out of 60,000 residents is the opinion of only 0.009%? Your work in progress is definitely at the beginning stages. So this item refers to the completely disproven allegations against the residents of Santee in 2020, where people at grocery stores wore swastika masks and a KKK hood, but none of them were actually residents of Santee. Yet here this item uses it as an excuse for the Community-Oriented Policing Committee to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program. And I got news for you. Many people consider DEI programs hateful speech and hateful thoughts that discriminate against certain groups of people in a most communistic way, propping up a favored few at the expense of the rest. The exact same thing happened in the Soviet Union. Peasants were held up over farmers called kulaks. And in early communist China, the youth were favored over the elderly. This racist skin color crap theory belongs in the garbage. Nobody's holding me down, but I do see tired, old, communist, socialist ideas of real hate and real violence being propped up over me and my fellow Americans, no matter what their skin color is. By the introduction of these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that just sound so nice, but they're not. This item says, quote, DEI framework, expand assessment among schools, businesses, residents, organizations, end quote. What happens when the assessment finds that everyone has different values and can't be brought to consensus? Why even try when real diversity is what makes America great and unique? Not this fake version of diversity which props somebody's desired few over the rest. This item also mentions the Black community and all peoples of color, faith, or other groups. Well, as one of those many groups, I oppose this false attempt at apologies for racism, past or present, here or anywhere. It's not only not necessary, it's actually pathetic and embarrassing. Why grovel when we're equals? There's only one value in this DEI program that I agree with, and that is, quote, authenticity, honestly representing one's true nature or beliefs, acknowledging the uncomfortable, and taking responsibility for one's mistakes, end quote. I hope all of you council members and everyone in a position of government would follow that value and be honest, true, and take responsibility for this communist-inspired and led diversity, equity, inclusion, racist agenda and openly and uncomfortably reject it forever. It doesn't belong in America. You can't get people to agree with what your values are. And yes, racism is horrible. It sucks. I wish we could get rid of it, but we can't. It's a part of life. So it can't be eliminated, and everyone has a right to think whatever they want, whether any of us like it or not.
Next speaker I have is Michael Pittman.
Hello again. I'm not going to talk about Little League for this topic. I am going to talk about cannabis, though. I've spoken before you guys about cannabis a couple times.
Hold on a second. You're going to have to speak to the DEI because that's the item that we're listening to, and cannabis become under something else.
Well, I'm going to talk about how to possibly, it was one of your top 12 priorities that was listed previously. And, now this is a new possible ordinance that you guys are core value that you all might implement. I want to show you that there could be avenues in this future business to incorporate some of this equity and inclusion stuff that is, being presented right now before you all. There is a disproportionately group that was impacted during the war on drugs. Some of those people lived in our community and were impacted by that war on drugs. And if we are going to create a program like cannabis in our systems, I think that we, using this framework, need to keep that in mind when we are starting to implement any sort of license or application. I think that using this framework, when you start to look into that, I would, possibly urge you to take into consideration a certain number of applications that could be reserved for the group of people that were maybe, disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, and especially here within the city limits itself. There's going to be a limited number of applicants that are able to actually get licensed within the city, at least on the retail level. And so if we are truly keeping these core values in mind, then maybe making sure a few of those licenses are and somehow impact the life of somebody who, might have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, or, there could be criteria as veteran, women owned. You guys can decide how that equity and inclusion piece looks for you all. But having some sort of every applicant going to just a list of criteria without some sort of support in that, maybe less of a license fee. There's lots of things you can explore around that, and I just urge you, once that comes, to look at this piece if it's approved when you are.
Okay, thank you. All right, council members, questions? Anyone?
Well, I don't have any questions, but thank you for your work over the last few years. Thank you. I just want to tell you that I appreciate what you've done, and we've had many workshops over the couple of years. I still, after Richard Marks came and spoke to us, that was, a very great workshop. I started following him on LinkedIn just to keep in touch with what he's doing. And, but you're right, you've done the phase 1 work and now it's phase 2. Where are we going to go from here? And I think you're looking for some direction on that. I do want to say that I do believe that this work actually started before 2020 because in my mind, when the branding survey came out, these items were talked about as well. The couple of incidents that happened in Santee, which I don't believe reflect most people in Santee, brought it to the forefront. And we heard testimony from a lot of people with a lot of different experiences. So if there's anything good about what happened then is that we got to hear everything, right? And then do this work. When you're looking at city designating who's going to take this torch and take it to the next phase, because it's a communication tool and that's what needs to happen first, we need to communicate it out to the community what we're doing, and you've been working with marketing. And community services is a core service for the citizens. I think that maybe it's somehow part of Spark, maybe a subcommittee with Spark that you all check in quarterly or something to see that we have a plan and we're moving forward with that. That's just an idea. I'm open to other ideas, but since you're asking for ideas tonight, that's one that I have. But again, thank you for your work.
Any other statements? Councilmember Canales.
I agree with Vice Mayor Koval with regards to, this being maybe something under marketing. It's, I can understand people saying, well, these are just empty words, saying these words over and over again doesn't make it happen. And I agree, it doesn't make it happen. You can't force somebody to think differently, but the more that they hear and see the words, the easier it is to come to terms with a different way of thinking, perhaps. And so oftentimes it is a lot about marketing. We do have, now we have Santee TV and things, and there are positive ways by which to introduce more positive thinking within Santee TV, and it's probably the best way that we have of getting messaging out to the citizenry of the city. So keeping it on, if we are looking what direction or where, that would be, to me, something more towards marketing. Obviously, it's got to be something that the city manager also keeps at the forefront of your mind when setting policy for the other things that happen throughout the city. I mean, the city manager runs 95% of what goes on in the city of Santee. We maybe deal with 5%, realistically. So if it comes to us, then these are bigger issues or bigger problems more often than not. And so having that for you to make sure it's, kind of always there in front of you and always in front of staff, and that we begin with the end in mind. So we're always looking at these core values when addressing any public policy issues. Will also help. But frankly, I think this is a lot of marketing is what's going to be needed to get any foothold of this is the way people think about Santee going forward.
Justin?
Well, I want to actually go to the core community values, you guys. The 3 words there, I think I think you guys did a great job on these 3 words. I mean, these are fundamentally things that I think most of all of us believe in. Accountability, being responsible for one's actions. I mean, that's really a very good, statement. Being community-minded. I mean, we all love our community in different ways, shapes, or forms, and how we utilize it. And we want it to be the best community that's possible. And then having respect for each other, respect for every single person in this room and within the community. So I want to applaud you guys on that. I think that's all spot on, getting there. I, too, actually believe that we're talking about specific staff member responsible. It really needs to go to the city manager. I mean, in our case, Marlene needs to be the one who directs how this goes forward. If that's with the marketing team, if that's with however you choose that, how we implement some of these these things here. And then as far as a committee side of it, I believe 3 out of 4, if not 4 of you, are on the compact committee already. So I don't think we need to have this ad hoc committee any longer, where we already have a committee that they already sit on that works within our current city committees, I guess, overall. So I think that's already there almost. I mean, there's not any reason to kind of change what we're currently doing and reporting back to, and that really you leading that committee. Obviously, I've been part of this whole entire process too, mostly in there. I know you go to those committee meetings too, in there. So I think those things are already kind of there for us to work with going forward. That's really all I got.
Have you presented this to Spark or any other committees? Or just, is this the first presentation?
We've presented it to Compaq
Okay.
for their input and their approval to bring it before you.
Is that it? Ron?
Well, I'd like to thank Linda, David, Mark, and Steve for excellent job. You guys did a good job. It looks really, and any other committee members that might have been involved, I thought I saw different names. It is well done. It's taken a long time. You spent a lot of time on this, and I appreciate everything you've done. This is hard to do. It's a hard subject. It's hard to just go through this. Frankly, it's a lot of enlightenment. I don't do it enough, but I like to set by example. And that's what the city needs to do. It needs to set by example. People will look at the city and say, this is the way it needs to be it homeless, be it whatever, be it diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we need to set the example, and the city manager needs to do that. I kind of like, again, with Councilman Trotter, I like the idea of just keeping it where it is now, no sense changing what isn't broken. And, even to keep the subcommittee if we could. It could go to a quarterly meeting if we need to, but it's well done, it looks good, and we just need to move on at this point. So I'll make the motion to move it.
Okay, before we, we'll get back to the motion because I want to make sure we have all the correct language in it, but I want to make some comments first. When I decided that I would want to put this committee together, I had full support of this council, and I appreciate that. And when I did this, I decided that too many times the politics gets in the way. And I made it very clear at the convening meeting that that would be the last time you would see anybody that was an elected official at your committee meetings, because we wanted this to be what you said, authentic and not about politics. And I clearly remember the nights when we did the workshops and we passed around the microphone and every single person in the room talked about some kind of microaggression or bias that they might have. So they became very vulnerable and they let everything out for everybody to see. Not just the people that were in the room, but the people that would view us on Santee TV. I've talked to many council members and mayors around the county, and they've all created DEI statements. And I said, how many of you have talked about what your own microaggressions are, what your own prejudices are, biases are, and things of that nature? And not every one of them said, no, we haven't done that. And I said, are you willing to do that? And the answer is no. Because I think people don't want to be vulnerable that sit in positions like what we are today. So this council is very different. We asked, and we're getting something that was not just a bunch of words. People were talked to in this community. I've been addressed by many, many people saying, thank you for doing this. And there was a lot of people that were not of color, were not of some other cultural background other than what I am. And they said, thank you for doing this, because they said it's about time somebody did it in an authentic way and that believed in it. And I know you've been asked to do this. You want to do it in 5 minutes, but it's taken almost 3 years because it has to be done right. You can't say, let's just put something on paper, then go back and fix it when it doesn't work, or when it wasn't authentic, or it wasn't what the community wanted. So I commend you all for that, and I commend the council for sticking to this and making it something that is coming to fruition. And I thank the staff, because the staff were the first ones to undergo this kind of training and meeting and talking about what our core values are as a group of people working in a city for a community, because it has to start with us. I think that what I would like to do is that, as part of your motion, Ron, is that I would like to increase the community-oriented policing by 1 member, and then appoint Steve. Oh, well, if you want to do it, I guess I should have asked you first. To that community-oriented policing committee, because you've worked very hard, and having the core 4, I'm calling you, together, because we had a lot of people that came in and they didn't stick with it, and we don't really know. I don't know if we'll ever talk about that, or anybody ever tells maybe it just took too long, and they had other life events that took them away, but the core 4 stayed. So I'd like for you to make that as part of your motion, along with the recommendation of the committee.
I'll revise it to what you said. It's easier that way.
Thank you. And so that is my comments, and very heartfelt thank you very much. And is there a second to Ron's motion? If there's not, I'll second the motion. Any more discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. That takes us to item number 8, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the First Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement with M.W. Still Group, Incorporated, for the Arts and Entertainment District Overlay Expansion Project, and finding action is not a project subject to the California Environmental Quality Act.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and members of the council. Tonight, we would like to present you a request to amend the contract we have with the MW Steel Group, our consulting firm working on the Arts and Entertainment District Expansion Project. Mark Steele has been working for a little over a year on updating and expanding our arts district. At the last council workshop back in August on this planning effort, the city council opted to expand the district from its current boundary as shown here, which comprises about 155 acres in the town center, to this boundary, which incorporates the town center park and river area within the town center, with a new district area of approximately 320 acres. Establishing this boundary was an important part of this planning effort because the preparation of the corresponding program environmental impact report was based on the ultimate area of the expanded arts and entertainment district. More than half of the $400,000 project budget was allocated toward this environmental review effort. During the time, Mark worked on the essential planning components for the project, including visioning and district boundary alternatives that involved extensive public outreach. The city successfully applied for 2 San Diego Association of Government, or SANDAG, planning grants that cover the town center area. The HAP, or Housing Acceleration Program grant for $264,000 and the Smart Growth Incentive Program grant, or SGIP grant, for $400,000. The main purpose of the HAP grant is to fund the preparation of a project-level environmental impact report for 5 strategic sites within the town center. Both sites are highlighted here in green. And as you recall, these were part of the housing element rezones project, and they were rezoned to high-density multifamily and mixed use. The environmental clearances obtained for these sites would allow for streamlined development of multifamily and mixed-use housing projects within these areas. For the SGIP grant,
Can you go back to that real quick? I apologize.
yes.
So the S20 on Magnolia, that's the one on Magnolia. Can you elaborate with those real quick?
Yes, so we upzoned these sites from institutional, commercial, to R22, which is residential 22 to 30 dwelling units per acre, and R30, which is residential 30 to 36 dwelling units per acre. So for the SGIP grant, the city was able to leverage your allocation on the Arts and Entertainment District project to obtain a matching grant fund of $400,000. This grant would fund a focused update to the town center specific plan with a transit-oriented focus around Trolley Square. The grant includes special allocations for crafting of way signage plan, and a mobility study, and the preparation of yet another environmental impact report. And so it's clear that there's a lot of duplication in town center focus tasks with both the city-funded Arts and Entertainment District expansion project and the 2 Sandag grant efforts, particularly in regards to the environmental review component. So this really represents an opportunity to consolidate the city effort with the grant efforts into one project. So the past few months, we've been working with Mark on a revised scope of work that combines these efforts and reallocates city funding and grant funding into tasks that support a comprehensive update to the town center specific plan, while also achieving the goals and objectives of the Arts and Entertainment District expansion project. Staff and our consultant have met with Sandag to present this revised scope, and they have found this approach acceptable as it would still achieve the underlying goals and objectives of the grant. So this new consolidated effort would ultimately result in a new town center specific plan with modern planning standards that would replace our existing plan from 1986, and this is an excerpt from that plan. The plan would include an updated parcel-based land use map with land use designations that relate to existing and desired development, an updated land use table expanding and refining allowable uses for each land use designation, especially for those designations that encourage arts and entertainment uses. We also include updated design and development standards that build upon our newly zoned multifamily and mixed-use sites in the town center. It also would include new streetscape and landscape standards, new landscape lighting standards, including for tree canopy lighting, particularly in the Arts and Entertainment District, and new sign standards that encourage strategically placed iconic gateway signage, as well as wayfinding signage, and a comprehensive sign program for the Arts and Entertainment District with uniform branding and exciting sign concepts such as this LED sphere, which I really like. So that's why I put it in. And finally, we would craft a new master plan for the town center with multimodal linkages that tie in all the new standards with the layout of buildings, streets, sidewalks, walkways, paseos, trails, water features, and parks, resulting in a unique identity for the town center, and that ultimately results in a place that attracts people and investment. The plan will encourage maximum potential building stories, or the plan will include, maximum potential building stories and square footages, which will in turn inform the environmental analysis for the project. This plan will then be utilized by developers to guide their project proposals within the town center area, allowing for a streamlined approach to development, because the environmental clearances would be obtained through this project. So now I'll briefly go over a little of the life cycle for the project. So the project kickoff began in January of last year. Starting in March, MW Steel commenced the project visioning component of the project, which involved significant community engagement, including 3 pop-up events and 2 community workshops. The results of this visioning step were then presented to you back in August, setting forth the goals and objectives of the project. After the workshop, MW Steel completed conceptual plans and illustrations for the project, and those were provided to you with our staff report in your agenda packet. So moving forward, in the next month, kind of an aggressive timeline, MW Steel will be preparing several master plan alternatives, which initiates the plan-making part of the project, where we start formulating actual a plan document with text and graphics. These plan alternatives will then be presented to the public in workshops in April and May within a venue in each council district. At least that's our current idea, if that's acceptable to you. Where they would be able to weigh in and vote for a preferred alternative, and not only a plan, but also other elements such as architecture, signage, even minor details such as street lights and what preferred street lights they may have. So then after those series of workshops, we will then move forward and bring these preferred alternatives from the public to you so that you may choose the preferred alternative. Then, based on the selected plan and direction from council, Mark will then go ahead and prepare a draft of the new town center specific plan, which will then be presented to the public and city council for review in a subsequent city council workshop in August. And then finally, after making changes based on city council and public input, we will present the draft plan for city council approval in September. So this will be a draft plan that can be used by developers as a guidance document for their proposed developments. The corresponding AIR will then be prepared, and once this document is ready for certification, we will bring back the new town center specific plan for final adoption in September of 2024. So at this moment, it's staff recommendation that you adopt the resolution before you to amend our professional services agreement with the MW Steel Group. Mark Steele, who has that consulting firm, is here tonight if you have any questions for him. And this concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear the community comments, speaker slips.
I have 2 speakers. First speaker is Truth.
So I was surprised to find that this was the worst item of them all on the agenda today. When I hear arts and entertainment, I think good things, but that's not what the fine print has in store. One of those things that can't be approved by only reading the title, and that's a reference to item 1 today. So this item says, quote, staff applied for and received 2 SANDAG grants related to the town center specific plan area, a housing acceleration program grant and a smart growth incentive program grant. The HAP grant funds future multifamily and mixed-use housing development within the town center. The Smart Growth Grant promotes new development within the district, including mixed-use housing, specialty commercial, and other entertainment uses, end quote. The city of Santee has no more room for more traffic that comes with more housing, and soon it'll look ugly like Grantville and North Park are becoming. But at least this item admits that, quote, the receipt of these two Sandag grants for the town center area represents the opportunity to consolidate the goals and objectives related to the Arts and Entertainment District with the use of the grants, end quote. So you council members are indeed aligned with Sandag's regional plan of all kinds of tyrannical ideas, including their smart city mobility hubs made up of high density, high concentration of people, multifamily, mixed-use developments by the acceptance of these grants. You can't accept a favor from the mafia and not expect that you won't owe them later. Whichever council member approves these grants is right there with Sandag's regional plan agenda. So this item says that only 169 people were asked their opinions out of 60,000 residents. I guess I'm number 170. Once again, we have a complete failure of actually getting a real consensus. So according to the survey, pretty much nobody cares about a variety of housing, which refers to the ugly and expensive stack and packs. So this item also admits, quote, the city of Santee's mobility element states that the city should create multimodal corridors that encourage walking, biking, and riding transit. All three projects have the goal of reducing the existing parking requirements within the town center, a plan that encourages shared parking, transit-oriented development. That's the United Nations Agenda 21 plan term. Time-limited parking, curb space management, unbundled, that's rented parking spaces, and parking enforcement, that's all tickets, end quote. The total price for this so-called arts and entertainment district is over $1 million. But unfortunately, this item is only going to intentionally bring more Soviet-style, sustainable slate gray prison block housing projects, reducing parking and traffic, bringing more traffic to the city of Santee. Where's the art? That's what everyone wants to know. The only art I see in this item is the art of deception. And it's very sad to find that out. The lesson is always read the fine print.
Next speaker I have is Michael Ranson.
Hello. I'd just like to say that I do support the Arts and Entertainment District. I did attend one of the workshops. I was not as thrilled with the workshop as I thought I would be. I think there could be some more outreach there. And I do agree with the last speaker that 169 survey responses is not enough. So my comment to you is, please, in the process of what you're going to do tonight, ramp up the outreach, rethink the outreach, perhaps create an ad hoc committee through Spark if there's time for it. It sounds like they have an aggressive timeline, which I love. I would like to have it done yesterday. I would like to have Carl Strauss on that corner today. I'm all for the arts and entertainment, but I think you need to have more pop-ups. You need to use Miss Humphreys, who is great at marketing, and get her to get more survey responses through all our Facebook pages. Create a Facebook page for the Arts and Entertainment District right now. No reason to not do that because it's going to be our future. So I think just do a better job with bringing the community in and getting their opinion. Thanks.
Thank you. Council comments. Dustin.
I'll go first. So I actually wanted to touch on that exact comment right there, Michael, was I've actually heard the same thing from community members, staff members here in the city, and business owners that they don't know what the heck this is. They don't understand what this arts and entertainment district is that we've been talking about for the last 6 months, a year. I don't know what it's been. And I think some of that did come to light today, a little bit of we aren't quite to that point to explain all what it was, I guess. It was the workshops, to get the input from the community and you know, that outreach in there. There was still, again, out in the community, to me, what I'm hearing is that people don't understand. They don't understand what this overlay is to our town center, what the overlay is to the office park area, you know, and how this all works together, I guess. So there is some of that needs to happen going forward. And maybe these workshops, you know, with the next round here will help shed some light on that and give some clarity to how this all comes together, I guess. It's really my only comment. I am in favor of approving the item tonight, so I'll make the motion to approve it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sure.
Councilman McNeils?
To that point as well, I think just it's much easier to see a picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So having some renderings, having some actual pictures up, and you like this better or this better, you like that type of stuff. It's a lot easier to get people engaged than just asking frankly, just asking. I don't know what I want. Yeah. What kind of options are available to me? So you've got to start maybe a little bit better with giving them some vision to start with, some ideas of what the potential could be. I do like some of the renderings that you did put in here, and even your sphere. But without that, I would have no idea that that's a possibility of what we could see in our arts and entertainment district. So, and I was, we were in the consultations. I know what I envisioned. I think Laura and I were in that together. So we know what we were envisioning, what we would like to see, but that doesn't, we were just two opinions. So having some pictures, having some of that to help start that conversation might do a little bit better.
Thank you. I think moving forward, we're going to have more concrete plans. I think initially with the visioning, it was hard to have that community engagement because, like you mentioned, it was kind of abstract.
Very.
Like, what is this? Nothing's been formulated now. But now I think we have a framework to move forward on and be able to provide concrete plans and illustrations and concepts to the public.
Thank
and
you.
maybe get better engagement.
And a second motion.
Great, thank you.
My comment is just, this is a plan that existed in 1986, so obviously it needs to be updated. And it's a council priority, as we've all established, to do this. We selected Best in Class to help us with the vision. Your resume speaks for itself, so anybody can research what projects you've done, including Liberty Station. Sandag grants is really semantics to me because, they don't make money. So we're just getting our money back on a priority project for the council, and that's the way that I look at this. Thanks.
Ron?
And again, either the last two issues, 500 and 100 and some people, we need, I remember when they were talking about Seaport Village, it was on every news station. It was come down and come to this room and we're going to have all these different ideas, Space Needle idea, the other ones that they had, the Ferris wheel. And my wife and I actually, it lured us down there basically to go down and see it and give our opinions. And it was somewhat, I like the idea of the Space Needle idea. So not that I want to see one here, but keep an open mind. But we need to really push this in the media, and we really need to push this not just on Santee TV or, because the numbers aren't there, frankly. But we need to really, if we have to, do social media, we have to pay for some of this. Let's use some of that grant money and get some of our people in there, and let's get a good impression from the citizens.
Absolutely.
Do you want to speak again? All right, yeah. I'm just going to be echoing these guys here and this gal, on my left here that's probably smarter than I am about this.
Way.
I asked for that. I did ask for that. So, but I think that the only thing I would wish is that we could create something that had like a Carmel feel, or Monterey where it's, Kincaid, well, I think we're
more
probably
near
past
traditional
that. Yeah, more
neighborhood,
traditional.
downtown kind of feel.
Yeah, a village type atmosphere, but
Not out of the possibilities.
I'm just one guy, so.
That's what we're saying. Everybody up here is saying the same thing. Let's not limit what we're saying. Let's really kind of get crazy, like your spear and things like that. So, which isn't crazy, by the way.
All right, I do have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
That takes us to another round of non-agenda public comment.
We have no speakers.
No speakers, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to the speakers tonight. That takes us to city council reports. Anything for us, Ron?
I've kind of put everything away, but their MTS, as you know, is doing a lot of building over on their sites. They did, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but we just approved the Spring Street site where we're going to put out about 195 units, housing units on the Spring Street. They're looking at El Cajon currently. And there is a trolley thing that's coming up right now where they want to take the trolley and stop it at Gillespie Field and Weld. We're in negotiations with MTS right now about that. But I did want to make everybody here aware so that there's no surprises that they're talking about having everybody exit and having a dedicated trolley just go back and forth between Santee and El Cajon. So.
Have they talked about timing on that yet?
They're really, it's all just preliminary at this point. Okay. But the timing is we're going to have full-time staff. So they're not going to cut the staffing up front anyway. They're going to cut the staffing. We're going to be, it'll be back and forth. Actually, I think they could probably increase the service back and forth because now they're not having to wait the 6 minutes going back and forth. So they'll just be off, drop them off, come back, drop them off, come back, pick them up, drop them off, and that'll be the nice thing about it. It'll be real fast.
If I have a question, if that happens, would they, like, would Minji need to do a reassessment of our turn signals?
He's involved. We're going to have another meeting. We've actually had one meeting again. I'm just trying to make you guys aware that so similar to what happened with the tiny homes that there's no surprises, but he's involved. City manager's involved. A couple other people involved too. So it's we've already had one meeting on it, and there's another one going to come up on April 4th.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I attended Borders Committee a couple weeks ago for Sandag, and most of the presentation was actually about all the development happening in Tijuana, and it's massive. The surprise high rises, so they're trying to build basically like a downtown San Diego in downtown Tijuana, and they have a housing shortage, in Tijuana as well. Obviously, they have a lot of infrastructure problems that are well documented on the news. But the building is happening, and the surprising thing to me, not surprising so much, that they're seeing a big increase in U.S. citizens relocating to live down there because that's where they can find housing. But the other surprising thing is how much they're selling for, like $700,000 for these are high rises. So it's comparable to downtown San Diego. So I thought that was interesting. And then my only comment, which was always my comment, putting on my regional hat, is, fixing the 67 freeway where it goes into one lane from Ramona down to Lakeside, because, as I call it every time, a death trap. So many accidents. There's such a high volume of traffic on that road. And somebody from Caltrans did come up to me after the meeting and said that they actually are reworking on a new plan for 67. So we'll see. I have his card. Dustin, I know I was, appointed to fill in for you last week, and then I was sick last week, so I wasn't able to attend the meeting. But I'll follow up with the representative from Caltrans to see what they're actually doing on the 67 and report it back.
Did they talk about bringing the trolley down there?
No.
Okay, that's another.
No, they did not.
Okay. Dustin?
I actually had a couple cool things. I did the Economic Development Council, and it continues that El Cajon, La Mesa, and Lemon Grove are envious of Santee, so I'll tell you guys straight up. The second thing I got to do something cool was last Saturday, got to be at West Hills Little League, and give out, do the proclamation and the, for the Little League Day in Santee, and also the recognition for the umpire that's almost 30 years there. There. So one of the cool things we get to do, we get beat up every day on our media and in our emails, but we get to do some cool things in the community, so got to do that last Saturday.
Councilmember McNellis? Okay. The only thing I have to report is that we did have a Public Safety Committee meeting at Sandag. It was very interesting. New chair, Jose Rodriguez from National City. As a chair, I'm the vice chair, and our former sheriff, Anthony Ray, is now the director down there. He got a 3-year contract. So it's interesting talking about law enforcement issues with people that actually, know what you're talking about. And so what we're doing is it's pretty easy to see that a lot of folks don't understand what goes on with our public safety in our county. The regional ARGIS, which is the regional automated regional justice system, how long it's been around, what we do with it, and some of the other reports that come out. And so, as a matter of fact, there's a new fee structure that's been proposed. It is a higher, much higher in some cases, some places, 200% increase. And unfortunately, the reason for that is because, like a lot of, I use the example like city council members who don't want to give themselves a raise but every 5 to 10 years. And then all of a sudden, in order to catch up, they have to do a big raise. And everybody's upset about it, like, why are you giving yourself that much when, like, for instance, 2% on a small number is not a lot, but 15% is still not a lot on a small number. So what's happened is they haven't raised any fees in a very long time, except in some small areas. And so now they have to be able to fund it. And we're recipients of that. So we're going to do a project this next 2 days at our Sandag retreat, and we're going to be talking about that and profiling ARGIS and talking about what they do, because people don't understand that our sheriffs and in the other areas where they have police officers, they use them every single day, that programming to check everything and create strategies for crime fighting. And so I'm thinking about maybe bringing them out here and giving a presentation to council if you're interested to see how that actually works. And because I think you'd be very surprised. So I'll probably talk to Sandag about that. And I don't know, you have any ideas or thoughts about that? Do you think it'd be a good thing to bring out here?
I do, and ARGIS is an invaluable tool for us, like you said, every single day. And ARGIS is it's a repository for several different databases, as you know, that we use literally every single day. So.
One thing I found out that I didn't know is they put all this information in there about basic things, but recently they just created a system where, let's say, a detective from, let's say, San Diego Police can do a search, and they can find out from the narrative. So it's not just check your box things. That from, let's say, Carlsbad PD, they can find out a method of operation, or MO they call it, of how people do a crime and get hooked up through that now. So it's becoming more and more sophisticated. And I've been gone for so long, I'm really interested in seeing how it works also. So I think that's a good thing that we can get out of it. So we'll city manager, we're looking at bring that a later date. So, all right then. That's all I have. Then city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Just one quick comment for the community. The rescheduled Fido Fest event is scheduled for this Saturday, rain or shine, at Town Center Park from 11 to 3. Be there, be square, bring your furry friends, and have a great time. Thank you so much.
City attorney.
Mayor, I do have a brief report. I've updated the council periodically on our efforts to get money back from the stormwater requirements through the unfunded state mandates process. And When I last gave a report on this, I told you about a victory we had at the Court of Appeal, which upheld most of our claims in terms of the requirements that are being imposed on the city being imposed only by state and not the federal government, and also subject to reimbursement because we don't have the ability to pay for them locally through fees and whatnot. And the state, as we knew they would, asked the California Supreme Court to review the case. And not only did they ask the court to review that decision, but they also tried to go back, and we had won a previous decision from the same Court of Appeal. They tried to kind of go back and say, well, these are all federal requirements. You should reconsider your previous decision. And pleased to report that the California Supreme Court said we're not going to take the case. And so we're done from the pure legal point of view. So now we got to go back to the commission and try to get money. You know, it's always been a long shot and how much we're going to get. A lot of this was about changing the legal landscape, which we've done. We've been successful in that completely. So now we're just going to try to get you, I don't know, somewhere like $60 million. But we'll see what happens. There's some hope because in the somewhat similar case that the LA cities brought, and that was very specific to just one issue, where ours is very broad. There was $18 million that was put in the budget last year for that, and they're actually paying money. So it's not out of the question that in a while we get money, but it's still a long shot. I'll keep you posted, but I want to let you know that you were successful in that process.
Good news for a change. It's good to see David being accurate with that slingshot for once. So, all right, then, that takes us to closed session, which is conference with legal counsel with existing litigation. So we're going to recess to closed session. Let the record reflect that we're out of closed session, back into open session, and in closed session where information was obtained and no action taken. That completes the agenda. Meeting is adjourned.